Yep, just hold on 1 second. We'll get rid of it in just a second.
Alrighty.
Pastor Greg, real quick before you start, George. Good evening. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting for Bedford Township for January 19th, 2021. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. This time, if Pastor Greg Withrow of Assembly of Christians could open us up in prayer, we'd appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Reading from Micah chapter 6, two of my favorite verses. It says, "He hath showed to you, O man, what is good and what the Lord requires of us, to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with God. And the man of wisdom will see your name, hear the rod of your correction, and know who's appointed it to its task." We thank you, Lord God, for the opportunity to open this meeting with prayer. We especially begin this prayer by praying for the family of Brandon Stalker, the law enforcement officer who lost his life this week. Cannot imagine what his family is going through, how difficult this on law enforcement when this type of thing does happen. We're grateful that it doesn't happen often, but it's still a horrible thing, Lord. We pray for mercy for his family, for a sense of peace and calm. I pray, Lord God, that they are close to you and know you and can turn to you for all the truest sense in that family, and that you're honored by this in some way as you grant them peace. So as we continue here, Lord, I pray for this board, that you would grant them wisdom by your mercy, that you would hold them to a higher standard for the sake of those that they represent in our community. And we thank you for your kind providence to our community in this, especially over this last year and entering into this new year, Lord God, knowing nothing about what's ahead, but trusting you for all of it. May you be honored above all others in all that we do. And we pray this in the name of the Lord Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor, for being on. Okay.
Thank you.
Item number 2, approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda submitted.
Okay.
Support.
Okay, motion by Mr. Steiner, supported by Mr. Gore. Any discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
You're on mute, Trudy.
Yeah, I unmuted and muted back. Mr. Steiner.
Aye.
Mr. Gore.
Aye.
Mr. Bruning.
Aye.
Ms. Janzak.
Aye.
Mr. Montry.
Aye.
First reading vote aye. Mr. Prony.
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Item 3, the consent agenda. The agenda committee recommends to A, approve and place on file the minutes of the January 5th, 2021 regular meeting of the Bedford Township Board. B, accept and place on file the general, savings, pooled funds, and CD reports from the treasurer. C, approve and place on file the revenue, expense report, and balance sheet for the period ending December 31st, 2020. D, accept with regret the resignation of Erica Morowski from the Downtown Development Authority effective immediately. E, accept with regret the resignation of Henry J. Levens from the Downtown Development Authority effective immediately. I look for a motion.
Motion to approve agenda.
Support. Okay, who motioned to that? Okay,
Montry.
motion by Montry, supported by Bruning. Is
Yep.
that correct? Okay, and discussion just with Mr. Levens, he did move out of the DDA, so that is why he resigned, because he was the resident in there. So could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Montroy,
Aye.
Mr. Bruni,
Aye.
Mr. Steiner,
Aye.
Mr. Gore,
Aye.
Ms. Janzak.
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Barone.
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Up next is public comment. Comments limited to 5 minutes for board agenda items only. Go ahead and call on in. Good evening. Go ahead and state your name and address and give us your comment. Hello?
Yes, this is Joe Sawyer with Glick Electric.
Okay, George, this is a caller for one of our agenda items. Just place him on hold until we're ready for it. Okay. Good evening. Go ahead and state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Feroza Almazi. I'm at the 3545 Wimbledon Court.
Okay, go ahead with your comment.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead with your comment.
We were willing to extend our liquor license.
Okay, so you're calling in for item 8D, okay?
Yes.
Okay. Is that all you needed to say?
Well, are we going to have them stay right now, or we have to wait? Or
Well, you're actually on the discussion of it's at agenda item 8D.
Okay.
This is public comment, so you can tell us whatever you want to tell us about that item. You have 5 minutes.
Okay. Well, the reason that we haven't started with the business is because we went through different architects, and it took us about a year for them, the third one to finish off. We spent money and time for the plan, but then when the pandemic hit, it affected us really, really bad, including our businesses. We are asking for an extension of 6 months a year in order to start the construction on the building. And that's why it has been hard on us to start. We don't know how business is going to go. Is our government going to open up the businesses or not? Are they going to be shut down? That is the main reason that we haven't started yet.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your comments. Next caller, George.
All right.
Hi, this is Lamar Frederick, 3254 Deer Creek Drive.
Good evening. What was your comment?
Well, I'm commenting on the Lamar Frederick, 3254 Deer Creek Drive. I'm commenting on items 8B and C. For the library work and the fire department work, again, why is there only one bid? While it's important that the current bid is from a local contractor, I thought the board recently indicated that they were trying to get 3 bids if possible, unless the work was an emergency. Now, I know there's a threshold amount that triggers the 3-bid minimum, but the sum of these 2 bids is in excess of $12,000, and this could be choice work for a small contractor in this area during the pandemic period where work is scarce. Now, the supervisor did not indicate in his memo that the work at the library or fire was an emergency. And by the way, the library is not open now, so there's no apparent need to have this work done completely so quickly, and no reason not to have more bids. There certainly has to be more vendors in the area that could and would do this work, and perhaps at a lower cost. But since the township already has one bid and it's public, other potential bidders have an idea of the value of the work and would have an advantage in adding advantage if any additional bidding was to come out. So rebidding the work is problematic. Number 3, why are the bids directed to the deputy supervisor? Bids probably should go to the clerk for proper annotation and custody, indication of the date of receipt, if the receipt was timely, and that all bids would be opened in the public so there'd be no thought of improper dealing, so that all vendors were treated equally. Now, why do I bring this up? Bids are good for 15 days. That's what these bids say, yet there's no date on the document whatsoever as to when it was received. So was this received 15 days ago, 20 days ago, or 2 days ago? Again, if this would have been received by the clerk, she would have date stamped it as to when it was received so that we know when the 15 days runs. Again, sending this to the supervisor's office is the wrong way to go. Thank you very much. Good night.
Good night. Thanks for your comments. And just so the public knows, because I want to address something sometimes, it was bid out to the public, to the county, to have one electric company. We put it out to bid for the lowest company to do our electric work. And that's why we're not putting out for 3 bids. We haven't done it in a while because they were lowest bidder for hourly rate. So this is why we don't have 3 bids. So same thing with our HVAC work. Rawlings was awarded all of our HVAC work because he was the lowest bidder. So that's why there's not 3 bids. So, okay, next caller, could you please state your name and address and go ahead with your comment? Go ahead with your name and address and your comment. Okay, George, I think we lost the commenter, so let's go ahead and move on to here. We got it? Okay, go ahead with your name and address and your comment.
This is Gail Kane, 1056 West Temperance. Jumping forward to 8H, I suggest that we deny. The clerk must maintain sole oversight. As to 8F, in a nutshell, 100% opposed. The ordinance department has become nothing more than a revolving door for temps, seasonal, and friend and family opportunities. The department is out of control. We need to return this department to the basic purpose it was created for and park the cars. 8G, please clarify the person in assessing who feels entitled to a raise. There should be absolutely no raises for anyone until after the compensation committee gives its recommendation, and certainly not until all departments are returned to pre-COVID status. And that includes returning 3 to 4 full-time to the maintenance department ASAP. Now, 7A through D. Despite the last meeting being a bit rough, I applaud those of you who did the job you were elected to do. You cannot allow yourselves to be bullied or threatened. No one political party, person, or department head should be dictating to the members of the board. Voters, we must share our opinions with the members of the board. And to anyone with doubts as to the source of toxicity at the township hall, my late husband witnessed firsthand the hostile work environment, and that was why in 2017 he had already decided to run for supervisor. And it was the basis for my code of conduct complaint that I sent to the state. As to committee selection, first, the grant and loan. Ms. Janzak heads this and should be making the recommendation. Mr. Hafer needs to update his application. There are already 2 township employees on this committee, and Mr. Schmieder removed himself, making Vanderpool the only option. DDA, after speaking with Mr. Levens, he gives recommendation to this person. Move forward. Planning. Please note that the dates of some apps, what some of the apps are. I'd be curious to know why they applied at this time. I have a full respect for Mr. Covert and his history of serving the township, but we have guidelines and we must abide by them if at all possible. And especially with planning and BZA, we need to avoid those who could have conflict with voting on developments. Now, some true truths and fun facts to keep in mind as we go forward. Almost every name submitted for appointment by a certain board member received campaign money from these very same people. January 7th, 2020, the supervisor's brother-in-law was placed on BZA without criticism from any of the other board members, unlike what happened at our last meeting. February 4th, 2020, Tinnevery argued selecting a variety from all applicants. No specific requirements are needed for most board appointments. Each person should be allowed to choose how they want to serve, with the Township Board recognizing these talents available from the applications submitted for each committee. For example, the Lewis Avenue corridor had no experts. That is a service that is provided by the Township's contract with Mr. Lake and Mr. Bushman. You want experience and history? TAC was the Township Committee involved in the Lewis Avenue streetscape for 15 years until right around 2017 when they were replaced with politicians, realtors, and those with self-serving purpose. And oh my, heaven forbid, all the blood, sweat, and tears put in on that committee. For the 39 Lewis Avenue Committee minutes, Mr. Peroni was recorded in attendance at only 4 of these meetings. Folks, it's time that we bring this township back to a democracy. We need to move forward, and I applaud you tonight, and I expect you to do your jobs that you were elected to do. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Have a great night. Okay, next caller. Go ahead and state your name and address. Good evening. Go ahead with your name and address and give us your comment.
This is Joe Soria with Blick Electrical.
Okay.
Here to talk about, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, Joe, we're going to have you on at when it gets to the agenda items at 8.
Oh, okay.
8B.
At 8? Okay, I was going to call in.
Yep. So just George, he could call back. Just don't accept him. Take a look at the number that just called it. Let him call back and don't put him in a tank. Okay, just call right back and he'll put you in, Joe.
I'll call
Okay.
back. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, moving on to staff reports. 6A, Fire Department update. Chief Massingill.
Yes, sir. Good evening. I just wanted to briefly update you on a couple things, budget-wise, and a couple projects moving forward to keep the board apprised of department business as we move forward. 2020, as far as our grant funding, was really successful. Total grant awards, we had 137,000, just a little over 600, so $600,000 in grants awarded, not including our 2018 SAFER grant money. So combined between the two, we had just short of $340,000 in grant money that was available to us for 2020. The SAFER grant, the staffing grant, will be wrapped up this year by November. That money will be spent, and the board will be making a decision as far as proceeding forward with the staffing at that time once the grant expires. This year, we still have $213,000 in grant money available to us as we move through 2021. So we've still got a couple projects we're finishing up I'll touch on tonight. And the grant period for the three new FEMA grants, the Assistance of Firefighters, the SAFER grant, and Fire Prevention and Safety, all have opened up this month. So we're working hard to get grant submissions together. Hopefully we can ease the burden on the taxpayers this year by soliciting and receiving some more grant funds. So a couple things really quick, and I'll try to move through this as fast as I can. Jacob Architects is getting really close as far as having bid documents so we can send out for the AFG grant we were awarded this year for the fire suppression and sprinklers for Station 2. We hope to have the bid documents together and sent out so we can get some bids back in, hopefully sometime in late March or in April. Thereby we can get approval or look for approval to continue with that grant and get it finished up before the money expires this fall. We've also sent out bid requests for a 2022 engine. So we're looking at into the future, actually about a year and a half away with the build time in engines. we're looking at the next replacement, which is about a year and a half away, but we need to get that or keep moving on that this year because there's a really long lead time for fire engines. If we're going to wait, we're going to incur some more costs as the prices go up this year. So we've been working on that. And then overall, I just wanted to touch on our fiscal budget because we're just under 47% of the budget while we're halfway through the year. So our budget's doing pretty well, but we want to caution the board that we know we've got some adjustments coming up for the additional full-time staff that we added. We're working really hard. Our revenue is above projections in the first half of the year. If it continues along that path, we should be in a pretty strong position when we finish up this year, but we're monitoring that pretty close. The apparatus equipment budget, right now we've got 78% available, but that's a little deceiving. We've got some invoices coming in for the striker, the power load systems and things like that. We're actually probably realistically a little closer to 60% as we move into the second half of the year. So I just wanted to touch on those things, make sure the board is aware that we've got the sprinkler bids coming in as well as some engine bids in the next couple months for board approval items.
Okay, we appreciate you, Chief, as always. You continue to do an amazing job in this community and everything you guys have brought forward with the fire department. Anybody else have any comments or any questions for Chief? Okay, think none. Todd, do you have a question? Raise your hand. No?
Yeah, that looks like a nice flower arrangement and balloons back there, Chief. What's that for?
Birthday party.
Thank you, sir. Some of the guys got me some flowers this week, so thanks.
All right.
Nice.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Chief. Moving on to unfinished business, 7A, appointment of board liaisons. Okay, I would like to make a motion to appoint Krista Janzak to the liaison to the Fire Advisory Board. Do I have support?
Support.
Supported by Mr. Bruning. Discussion? Being none, could you call the roll, please, Ms. Hirschberger?
Mr. Peroni,
Aye.
Mr. Bruning,
Aye.
Mr. Montroy,
Aye.
Mr. Steiner,
Aye.
Mr. Gore,
Aye.
Ms. Janzak,
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye.
Okay, the motion passed 7-0. Next, I'd make a motion to appoint Rick Steiner to the liaison to the Planning Commission.
Support.
Supported by Mr. Gore. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Peroni,
Aye.
Mr. Gore,
Aye.
Ms. Janzak,
Aye.
Mr. Bruning,
Aye.
Mr. Montroy,
Aye.
Mr. Steiner,
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye.
And the motion passed 7-0. Next, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Trudy Hirschberger to be the liaison to the Communication.
Second.
Support.
Okay, motion is supported by Mr. Steiner. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Peroni,
Aye.
Mr. Steiner,
Aye.
Ms. Janzak,
Aye.
Mr. Montroy,
Aye.
Mr. Gore,
Aye.
Mr. Bruning,
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye.
And the motion passed 7-0. Next, I'd make a motion to appoint Joe Gore to be the liaison to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Support.
Okay, motion is supported by Ms. Janzak. Discussion? Okay, seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Peroni,
Aye.
Ms. Janzak,
Aye.
Mr. Montroy,
Aye.
Mr. Bruning,
Aye.
Mr. Steiner,
Aye.
Mr. Gore,
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye.
And the motion passed 7-0. And last, I'd make a motion to appoint Craig Montry to liaison to the Library Advisory Board.
Support.
Okay, motion is supported by Mr. Gore. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Peroni,
Aye.
Mr. Gore,
Aye.
Mr. Steiner,
Aye.
Mr. Bruning,
Aye.
Mr. Montroy,
Aye.
Ms. Janzak,
Aye.
votes aye.
And the motion passed 7-0. Okay, moving on to 7B, the appointment of the Grant Loan Committee. I'm looking to appoint Homer Carey to a first term ending 12/31/22 to the Grants and Loans Committee. So I'll make a motion to appoint Homer Carey to the Grants and Loans Committee for a first term ending 12/31/22.
I'll support it.
Okay, motion is supported by Ms. Janzak. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Proney,
Aye.
Ms. Janzak,
Aye.
Mr. Montroy,
Aye.
Mr. Gore,
No.
Mr. Bruning,
No.
Mr. Steiner.
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye.
And the motion passed 5-2. Okay, moving on to appointments to the Downtown Development Authority. I'm looking to appoint Charles Sheeb to the Downtown Development Authority for a first term ending 12/31/24. Mr. Sheeb is a resident of the Quill Hollow, which qualifies him to serve on the board. Mr. Sheeb has not served on any other township boards. So I'll make a motion to appoint Charles M. Sheeb to the Downtown Development Authority for a first term ending 12/31/2024.
Support.
Supported by Mr. Gore. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Proney,
Aye.
Mr. Gore,
Aye.
Ms. Janzak,
Aye.
Mr. Steiner,
Aye.
Mr. Bruning,
Aye.
Mr. Montroy,
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye.
Okay, the motion passed 7-0. Item 7D, appointment to the Planning Commission. I'm looking for the board for a first term ending 12/31/23. Ms. Kuhn is a longtime resident of Bedford Township. She has a law practice in downtown Temperance. Ms. Kuhn practices family law and is not involved in development or the building industry. Ms. Kuhn also brings diversity to the board, and she has not served on any other boards for Bedford Township. So I'll make a motion, we appoint Kimberly Kuhn to the Planning Commission for a first term ending 12/31/23.
I'll support, Paul.
Motion and supported, was that Mr. Gore?
Yes.
Okay, motion and supported by Mr. Gore. Discussion?
Just piggybacking off of Mr. Proney, I think Ms. Kuhn would do a fantastic job on the planning commission.
Mr. Bruning?
Was her application received after the deadline?
There was no deadline. The board never approved a deadline. There was discussion of it, but the board was never put on an agenda and never approved, so.
Okay.
Any more discussion, thoughts? Okay, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Proney,
Aye.
Mr. Gore,
Aye.
Ms. Janzak,
No.
Mr. Steiner,
Nay.
Mr. Bruning,
No.
Mr. Montroy,
Aye.
Hirschberger votes no.
Okay, and the motion failed 3-4. Okay, moving on to new business, item 8A, vouchers for payment. Ms. Hirschberger?
On the vouchers, just so everyone knows, when you're looking at it, the report date should be through 1/19. The 13 was a mistake on the report. So general fund in the amount of $136,622.62. Fire district, $13,519.70. Police fund, $441.20. Park fund, $1,212.95. Fire equipment, $251.12. Transit system fund, $47.25. Library fund, $1,711.23. Water revenue fund, $125. Downtown Development Authority, $144.03. Sewer O&M Fund, $456,431.07. Trust and Agency Fund, $338.47, for a grand total of $610,844.64.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion and support of Ms. Janzak. Discussion? Okay, seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Hirschberger votes aye. Ms. Janzak?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Peroni?
Aye. And the motion passed 7-0. Okay, moving on. Is Mr. Glick on? Joe? From Glick Electric? Mr. George? Okay, item 8. B, approval to fix and upgrade lights at the Bedford Library. And just to piggyback on what the caller had called in about, this board took their time, put it out for a bid to attract an electrician company that was the lowest bidder. So we know we're constantly getting a lower rate. So they won that bid. So they're, until we put it out for bid again, unless we want to stop having one company do our work. For right now, we don't have to get 3 bids. That's why we did it. So we know we're dealing with somebody who has, they do it $85 an hour, which is an extremely reasonable rate. And so that is why. So Joe, go ahead and talk to us about the lights, the upgrade lights at the Bedford Library. We'll start there.
Okay. Yep, this is Joe Sawyer with Glick Electric. Originally, we were called out to take a look and fix. Bedford Township was having issues with recessed lights that kept going out. We went out there. We discovered that the baluses weren't capable of supporting LED lamps. So we replaced some baluses, not knowing how old the baluses were. We thought that that would take care of the issue. Again, it seems like, and then maybe a month later, it seems like multiple recessed lights went out. We went back out there, took a look, and what's going on is these baluses that were installed for these recessed lights, again, they're not capable of supporting LED light bulbs. So there's 107 recessed lights, and I worked with L for about 3 weeks on. We were waiting to see how we could fix this issue so we wouldn't have to keep on going back out there. And it was determined that the best outcome would be is just to completely rewire the light, bypass the baluses. So we do away with all the baluses, and then we're going to install a new LED light bulb. So we would do away with the baluses. You wouldn't have to worry about replacing baluses ever again. The only thing you would ever have to replace would be the light bulb, and they come with a 50,000 hour lifetime warranty on them, so which is about 5 years. And then let's say at this point, since it's rewired, as changing the light bulb, pulls right out, push the new one in. So that's kind of where we're at right now. We would bypass all the baluses, rewire them, put new LED fixtures in, and you shouldn't have an issue again. And if you do, they're under warranty, but you won't.
So part of the issue was when the board approved to go LED, the last company that we used, that we have a government agreement with, thought that the baluses would hold the lights. So we didn't change the baluses on a lot of the lights. We just put lights in. Well, they went out, they replaced them for free, and now they're going out again. So when they replaced the 12, that's what he's talking about. We didn't replace the baluses on all 107 of them. It was just 12 of them. So he's actually not going to charge us to rewire the 12 that he already rewired. So that's why the price reflects that. But anybody have any questions for Joe with Glick? Mr. Steiner?
Not so much for Joe. I thought we were advised that there would definitely be no need for us to make all those changes when we approved to spend thousands of dollars on these lights and not having to do all those ballasts. I mean, do we have any recourse on the company that did that? I mean, We had it in
Correct.
writing,
That
it
was
wouldn't have to
Voss.
do that.
That was Voss Lighting.
Right.
And they did update everything and, except for these lights. They only changed it to save us money. They didn't want to spend money that we didn't have to spend. They didn't work, they didn't take, so they, for free, replaced the lights again. So this is a cost that we didn't have up front when we originally moved over to LED. It's just like the township hall right now. Township's hall is having issue with the parking lot lights with our panel that we have. We might end up having to change our whole panel because we're not putting enough load on it. It's an older panel, so what'll happen is the lights for the parking lot will be on during the day and not on at night. We're having issues with them. So a lot of times when you change to LED, they're not, it won't take some time. So they tried to save us money in the beginning and it didn't work out. So now the money we would have spent in the beginning, we're going to have to spend right now. And thank goodness we did it 3 years ago because it's already paid for itself. So this money we're spending now, it'll pay for itself in another 6-8 months. So
we've got.
So yeah, if we'd have known in the beginning that we had to do it, or Voss said we had to do it, we would have done it. But we listened to them. And but as far as recourse, there is none.
So for 107 lights, where are we going to draw this money from? Is this going to come out of library or is it going to come out of general fund?
So come out of the library's millage. And the library advisory board's aware of this. He's not charging us for the 12 either that he already did last month. So.
Yeah, that's correct. So the 12 that we went through and we fixed before, they have new balances in them, but like I said, eventually they'll go out. So I'm not charging you we're still going to replace, bypass those balances, do away with them. The 12 that were fixed recently, just so all 107 of them are the exact same. They all have the warranty. It doesn't make sense, and we'll just eat that cost. We appreciate the business with you guys, but it doesn't make sense to do 95 of them and leave 12 of them different. So we'll take care of that cost on the 12.
So after this, we should be good for a lot of years. So
yeah,
50,000 hours. Comments, those are good questions, Mr. Steiner, by the way. But does anybody else have any questions, Mr. Bruning?
Yeah, I'm just not comfortable having one bid, Paul. I'd like to see 3 bids. So that's where I'm at on this.
Yeah, I don't totally disagree with you, but, we have a lot of work that comes up and getting 3 bids is tough to get. And that's why our previous board, now, if this board doesn't want to do that in the future, if we want to go back to how it was, I believe me, we know we're getting a good price by Glick. That's why we put it out for a county bid. And we got the lowest bid, like I said, at $85 an hour. And that's what was approved. That's why we don't have 3 bids here. So until the board changes that, that's, now every once in a while, if the board wants, we could just do it to, I guess to keep people honest, but, as far as what's before us tonight is legit. We don't, we're not required to have 3 bids, and that's why we did that, because it's a lot of work doing that. And that's why we have, just like with our HVAC, we have one company that we know does good work, the lowest bidders, and so.
Okay, so when I vote how I vote, you're going to know why. There you go.
Well, that's on you. So, okay, any more comments or questions?
Yeah, Paul, the last question there, I do see we've got showing here 5 years warranty on the LED lamps. Is there anything in the warranty from Glick Electric regarding the general workmanship and things like that? Any warranty there for the rewiring itself?
No, because they didn't rewire.
Go ahead. I'll talk about what he's going to be doing.
Oh, what he's going to be doing. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, I misheard you that. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, so that warranty would go with the entire fixture. That's going to be the rewire, the lamp, everything that consists of that fixture. The rewire will also is part of that warranty.
So it covers that 5 years as well.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And Mr. Montre, go ahead.
Just a couple things. One is the bid process, and that is something that I don't know if that was ever officially stated at all, or we had set, like I said, we had set these up to have these contracts so that we could get this done. But I totally get where Todd's coming from, saying, well, like, shouldn't we have 3 bids? But I don't know where we draw the line on getting stuff done to get it done. And like, I'm willing to bet you bid this out. This is still the best bid for this job. One of the other things I was trying to look back. I'm going through. I don't have 2 years ago's budget, but just for a little history on the entirety of the situation, for even just for Todd and Joe, that this job in and of itself I'm trying to look at how much we spent our electric bill at the library before switching this over. Paul, do you remember how much that cut it down? Like, do you remember it's a massive difference. I'm looking through and I don't have the
saving with LED lights.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? It's roughly $1,500 a month.
So
that's just at the library.
Okay.
They're worth over 3,000, Paul.
Say again, Mr. Steiner.
Wasn't it over 3,000 or 25 somewhere in there?
I thought it was more than
work done. It was about 25,000, and then there was a couple other things that we had to do. We're probably around.
I'm talking about the budget, the expenditures per month. It was like 25 to 3, I think.
I thought it was a lot. I thought it was very, very significant and made a massive difference.
Any LED, it was roughly 5,000 a month for electric. It was from what I remember, it was I'd have to look at the records, but it was way up there. And that's why we looked at it. We just couldn't believe that the electric bills were that high. That might be heating and air or something. I'm not sure, but I'd have to double.
On top of it, just the entirety of this situation, it's something that has been being dealt with for a long time, and really, we just had. I don't know if it was Voss was just. I'm glad to be having Glick working on this and feel confident that it would actually be done and be done right, because this should have been done and done right so long ago. We shouldn't still be dealing with this. So I said, so you're saving a lot of money already. I understand that it's going to be an extra $7,000, but
and
to have
plus
it done and done.
Not to interrupt, but Voss, they took a huge hit on this project because a lot of the ballasts originally wouldn't take to the wiring, so they actually gave us a free upgrade to all LED ballasts. Yeah, this project didn't work out well for them. I just think it was in the end they were, but yeah, this should wrap up everything. But I would suggest if the board is going to vote this down over the bid situation, we need to put it on the next agenda to change the way we're doing it. Because if we have another bid, we're just going to be coming back with one bid from Glick until we get it changed. Same thing with heating and air. So, okay, any more discussion or questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, I look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve and fix the upgraded lights at the library with Glick Electrics.
I'll support, and I'll just say, that with it being the library being shut down, it's a great time to get this work done. Because I would think in the next month, I would think that, they'd be open back up. But so, okay, let's call the roll, please.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Peroni?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
I'm going to struggle a little bit on this one. I agree with the 3-bid process. Mr. Frederick hit a very good point, though. The horse is already out of the barn here, and the numbers are already out there, so it would be an unfair bid process for somebody to be able to come in and undercut. If it wasn't for that, I'd be saying no, but I'm going to say aye.
Mr. Gore?
I have to agree with Mr. Steiner. When I'm looking at a $7,000 bid, even if we went out for rebids and they came back, you're talking maybe a couple $100 savings. Maybe somebody low bids at 6,800 and for $200 or 300, do we really need to haggle over it? I say we move forward, so I'm going to say aye. Let's get it done.
Ms. Janzak?
I agree with Rick and Joe as well. I say aye.
Mr. Bruni?
No.
Hirschberger says aye.
And the motion passed 6-1. So yeah, I would just say to the board, our last board approved this. So, I mean, I would just say move forward if you want to go back to a 3 bid, because if we have a project next month at 15,000, you're going to see 1 bid. So, Mr. Montre?
I also appreciate within this, like what Joe's pretty much thrown in an extra $1,000 of labor on this job. That's another value that I see from having these kind of partnerships and contracts, or however you want to put it, that you have good faith business partnerships. That's how stuff gets done. If this was put out to bid, that's likely not being thrown in for free, in my opinion.
Okay, all right, moving on to 8C, approval to upgrade the back and front bay lights at Fire Station 2. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, so there is, we were called out, again, these are fluorescent tube lightings and old ballasts. Speaking with the fire station staff, it seems like it's just a constantly changing of light bulbs. So this is another thing. We completely bypass the ballast, install LED. These are LED strip fixtures, and good for 5 years, 50,000 hours. And you warranted the wiring and the fixture itself. Anything goes wrong, we come out, we replace it for free. But this is another one of those completely bypassing the ballast, and it's just the way of the future. Ballasts are old, they're not reliable, they cost more for utility bills, and completely do away with them, wired direct to the LED fixture, and more reliable and cost efficient.
Anybody have any questions? Or Chief Massengill, you're still on. Do you have any thoughts or anything?
Yeah, just really quickly, just so the board understands, this isn't every bay that we've got. This would be about half of Station 2. So the 4 front bays, the smaller bays, we opted not to get bids at this time. It's the 4 operational bays. We're going to try and hold off on those other 4 smaller bays because given the extensive work that needs to be done over there, we don't want to do some replacement over on what would be those 4 small bays. And then 6 months or a year from now, have to pull a bunch of that out, do some more work there, and be doubling up the work or reinstalling lights. So this would be the 2 new bays and then the 2 additional bays that are being used right now.
Okay, Mr. Gore.
Question first: is this money going to come out of the fire millage? And if so, is Mr. Massengill comfortable with the dollar amount and feels it's appropriate?
I'm sorry, sir. You kind of cut out. I missed the first part of the question.
Is this coming out of the fire millage? And are you comfortable with this cost coming out of the fire millage or budgeted for that?
So the operational millage, we've got it budgeted for the operational millage, yes. Our second millage is for apparatus and equipment, so it would have to come out of the operational millage.
Okay.
But we do have budgeted funds for it, yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Steiner?
Just one thing to add that Joe from Glick Electrical mentioned the 5-year 50,000. That was actually spelled out on the library quote. We would need to make sure that would be part of the motion because it's not written on this quote if we do tend to vote yes.
Okay. All right. Any more discussion or questions? If not, I look for a motion.
Rick, how do you want the motion to read? You had to spell out, you're talking the 50.
we would need to add the 5-year, 50,000 hours warranty, the same as the library bid, which applies to the workmanship and the LED lights themselves.
Okay, so I'll make a motion. I'm trying to write it out, for Glick Electric, to address the light situation at the fire station on Dean Road. Included the 5-year warranty and 50,000 hours.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion and supported by Mr. Steiner. Mr. Montre?
Hey, Joe, is that a 5-year or 50,000, or how does that work?
It's a 5-year.
It's just a 5-year.
It's
Okay.
guaranteeing. It guarantees that the lamps are going to last for 50,000 hours, which is equivalent to about 5 years. But the way the warranty works is it's going to be 5 years because there's no way to tell, if you're at 49,800 hours. There just isn't. It's a 5-year.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Gore,
Yes.
Mr. Steiner,
Aye.
Mr. Bruning,
No, only because I want to see 3 bids.
Mr. Montroy,
Aye.
Ms. Janzak,
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni.
Aye, the motion passed 6-1. Okay, Joe, thank you for being on. We appreciate it. And could you just shoot me a text when you guys are going to get started on the work, please?
Absolutely, I'll let you know, and I appreciate everything. Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye. Okay, item 8D, discussion on requesting the return of the liquor license from Fireside Restaurant. Mr. Goldsmith?
Thank you. Back on December 9th, I sent all of you a letter regarding the status of the Class C liquor license, which was awarded by the board to Jeff LLC, that the applicant for the property located at 7495 Secor Road in Lambertville. A motion was made at the October 2nd, 2018 board meeting, and I'm just going to recite the motion. It was made by Trustee Tinneberry, seconded by Clerk Hirschberger, to approve the request from Jeff LLC for a Class C liquor license at 7495 Secor Road, with the understanding that their business would be open for business within 18 months. That motion carried unanimously. So the license was conditional, and now we're way beyond the 18-month time frame. So we thought it appropriate to bring it back before the board, and really the catalyst for bringing it back before the board was some communication our planning employees had, our planning department had with the applicant. The applicant in writing stated that they were withdrawing their site plan request for site plan approval, and I guess they did get site plan approval. However, they were abandoning the project, and they cited COVID as probably the primary reason for doing that. So our ordinance 90, as I set forth in my letter to you, provides this board with the opportunity to revoke that license. If you choose to do that, you have to conduct a public hearing, and we have to notify the entity, the applicant to whom the license was awarded, at least 10 days prior to that public hearing, so they can come and present to the board reasons why they either want the license continued or have additional time in which to bring their facility operational, or whatever they might decide with respect to that. So here we are, we're way beyond the time limit that was imposed by the board. Contact Liquor Control Commission. Liquor Control Commission advised that the applicant had been provisionally approved, but the inspection of the facility had not been completed. And before the license is awarded, the facility has to be up, running, inspected, and capable of conducting business, and obviously it's not. What as your attorney, what I don't want to see happen is some attempt by the applicant to market the liquor license to some other entity, because this was a new license based on census. And we went through the process, the board went through the process pursuant to Ordinance 90 to notify people within the community that this license was available. Several applicants came before the board. We had a public hearing. They all made their presentation, and the board, in its discretion, awarded the license to this particular entity. So it's totally up to the board. You have the discretion, if you so choose, to give them an extension of time. You also have the discretion to say, we are going to conduct a public hearing to revoke the license because the provisional part of the motion was not adhered to, and it wasn't up and operational within the 18-month period. So totally discretional with you folks as to what you want to do. And so it's on the agenda now. Our agendas have been so full, Trudy and I have discussed that we really couldn't get it on in front of the board until tonight. But if you want to move forward, I think you should have discussion tonight as to what you might want to do. I can answer any questions. If you want to move forward with a revocation, which is your right pursuant to our ordinance, we would then schedule a public hearing at another meeting.
Mr. Gore?
Mr. Goldsmith, I've been reading through all the exhibits. Number one, they're the ones that withdrew their the whole plan, the building, everything back in October. Now, if we give them, return the liquor license to them, could they sell that liquor license and make it part of the property if they want to sell it? That way it'd make the property they own more marketable. Is that what I'm understanding, or am I misunderstood?
Well, we as a township make a recommendation, and we did that. We awarded the license subject to two things. Number one, liquor commission approval, and number two, that they be up and operational, that their facility be completed and operational within 18 months of October 2nd, 2018. So liquor control controls whether or not that license is marketable. And I am concerned about that. That license is really provisional at this time because the facility is not complete and they cannot operate from that facility. So that concerns me that there might be some thought on their part to market it and make a profit. Not that making a profit is wrong, but the board envisioned, and if you go through Ordinance 90, there's several parameters that the board takes into consideration as to who gets awarded that license. I think the board looks strongly at different locations within Bedford Township. That particular location was essentially a vacant building in an area that the board at that time thought would be a good location for a restaurant with a liquor license or a restaurant bar. So to have that license go somewhere else without the approval of the board, I think would be inappropriate.
Okay, thank you. So I'm on board with going forward with the revocation of the liquor license, if that's how I'm understanding everything. They've had more than enough opportunity. They're the ones that withdrew everything, and now they're coming back, 4 months later saying, "Oh, we want to start over from scratch and go another year." So I say we move forward and with the revocation. That's where I stand.
Mr. Steiner?
Another question, Mr. Goldsmith. So if the board decides to put this into a public hearing format, and at the public hearing, the vote would be affirmative to revoke the license application. So the question would be, is even though if the township board voted to revoke it, so the applicant also knows, are they allowed to try to reapply for that license when it goes back out?
They could. We would follow ordinance 90. If the board, after a public hearing, decides to revoke the license, our ordinance, and we would do it anyhow, we would immediately notify both the business owner, and I assume they would be at the public hearing regardless. So we would notify the Michigan Liquor Control Commission to let them know that we revoked approval of the license at that location for the reason that the facility is incomplete and incapable of conducting business. And then once we get the go-ahead from liquor control, then at that point, we would hold another public hearing. That requires a minimum of a 2-week notice to the public. And that what we do is we solicit applications. And then once we have applications, and they'd be submitted to the clerk, once we have applications, we'd schedule it for a public hearing. And we can interview each applicant individually, or we can do it all at one meeting and have successive public meetings for each applicant. It's all laid out in the ordinance. But to answer your question, sorry for the long-winded response. Yes, they could reapply if they so chose.
That was long-winded.
Well, it was long, but I think it was necessary, Phil, so it was fully understood.
No, it was good. Ms. Hirschberger?
I just wanted to ask Phil, just so the new members of the board know also, do we have to do a public hearing and give that liquor license away, or can we hold it?
We could hold it. We held it before for a period of time. It was, I'll call it our Class C liquor license blank. It was awarded based on the census 10 years ago, if I remember correctly. Either there was no interest in it, or I think what happened back in October of 2018 is that some folks who were interested in opening up a restaurant or restaurants, or felt they needed a liquor license for an existing restaurant, saw that with liquor control that license was available. And that's what started the process. But to answer your question, I believe we can hold it. We would have to get confirmation of that from the Liquor Control Commission, but I believe, like we did before, we could hold it.
Okay. Any more comments or discussion? Okay, seeing none, I look for a motion. Mr. Montry?
I have another question, I guess. Is there anyone else like applying, like that is in a better position currently, or is that irrelevant?
To my knowledge, there have been no inquiries about the license. I don't think it's irrelevant. There haven't been any inquiries. But to determine what we should do in this particular case, at this point, it's not really relevant from the standpoint. You have to, as the board, you have to make a decision whether to move forward with a revocation or to give the current applicant who was awarded a license an extension of time. If you decide to move forward with a revocation, then Trudy and I will work together to get the proper public notice out. We'll notify the applicant, and we'll schedule it for a public hearing.
Just us having this discussion, and it's going to be in the paper, you're going to draw some interest. You're going to start getting some calls in the next couple months, and ideas will start popping up, and that's when the board can start discussing it and do what we did a few years ago. Go through the process again. So, Ms. Hirschberger?
Sorry, I have one more question. Phil, if we do this to revoke, does the applicant bring us information, or how does this work to try and keep it? Or once we go to this public hearing, it's revoking no matter what? How does this process work?
Well, the purpose of the public hearing is to allow the entity to whom the license was awarded an opportunity to come before the board and give the board reasons why the license should not be revoked. So they'll have the opportunity to present any evidence that they might want to the board, any reasons they might have for not being complete, and any plans that they might have to complete remodeling and construction of the facility. So they can come before the board and they can plead their case after, and you can ask them questions, cross-examine them, if you will. And then at the conclusion of that public hearing, the board will then, by a roll call vote, make its decision, motion and roll call vote, make its decision. You could at that time revoke. You could at that time decide to extend with certain conditions. That's entirely up to the discretion of the board.
Okay. All right, I look for a motion.
Mr. Supervisor, I'll make the motion to put the liquor license for Fireside Restaurant on the next available agenda for a public hearing to determine whether to revoke the license or not.
Support.
Okay, motion and supported by Mr. Bruning. Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll, please.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Ms. Janzak?
Aye.
Ms. Schwiger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Okay, moving on to 8E, approval for all township committees to use Microsoft Teams when mandated. This discussion doesn't need to necessarily mean that all committees have to use Microsoft Teams, because I know, that'd be a lot for George, but I think there needs to be some outlet for committees to have an option to use Microsoft Teams or Zoom or something. A lot of these committees are getting together and they're using their own programs, or whatever. And so I just think I'm not sure who all is using Microsoft Teams. I just know that some people are struggling. I know the Green Initiatives Committee, they were using their own thing, but it gets timed out after 40 minutes. So I just thought there should be some discussion. I don't know, if George is maxing out on his hours or, or Trudy, are you keeping track of the hours, or is he maxing out on his hours?
Yes.
And if that's something, if it's, it doesn't look like any boards overlap each other. I don't know if it's something, George is willing to do. Could we use Microsoft Teams without George, to where some of these committees that it doesn't have to be on YouTube? We could just use Microsoft Teams where people could still call in, I guess. I don't know. I just wanted to have a discussion because I think, either everybody should have an opportunity to use the Microsoft Teams, or this board needs to buy a Zoom account, for the $160 a year with 100 users, and let, have another outlet for groups to use. So. Ms. Hirschberger?
You said that's $160 a year for 100 users?
It's something like, it could be a little bit more, but it's around there. It's not crazy expensive. That gets you to where you don't have the 40-minute limit. The free version is 40-minute time limit, and that it ends. And I just think, we should have something in place for people that we are putting on these committees, like, hey, we have a Zoom account, or,
I'm thinking that might be the less expensive route to go. With George's time, he is probably double, if not triple, over the hours that we have asked him to put in. And if they don't need to be televised, then I think Zoom is the way to go. And the ones that do need to be televised, he's already doing.
Yeah, most of them don't need to be televised, I would say. So yeah, I agree. Let's, but at least have that available. Mr. Steiner?
Yeah, I agree that, the other committees have never been televised to begin with, so I can't see they need that part. And again, for $160 a year, that's a lot cheaper than paying George to come in and do all that and all the extra work he has to perform on top of it. I know that, I know educators do get a little bit of a discount, so who knows, the government entity might also get discount, but either way, that's probably the best avenue.
Mr. Gore?
I'm just going to piggyback off of Ms. Hirschberger and Mr. Steiner. I would, I mean, Microsoft Teams is fine. This is the first time, or these last few meetings that I've ever used Microsoft Teams. Before that, at my place of employment, it's been Zoom. So I'm getting familiar now with both Zoom and Microsoft Teams. And to have that option could be a benefit. Are there any other ones out there, or is it really Zoom and Microsoft Teams the
Not that I know, you know, not that I know of worthy of government use. I don't know. I'm sure there probably is, but.
The other big one is Skype.
Right.
And again, you have to purchase all kinds of software programming for that.
Yeah, I didn't care for Skype when we had it on the school board. Zoom and Microsoft Teams, I've liked much better.
They had Skype way back then?
Yeah. Back in those days.
Back in those days? Mr. Montroy?
If they're not televised, is there a need for George, or is that something that other boards and committees would be able to use? Like, if there's not overlap of meetings, is the Microsoft Teams account, is there any reason why Green Initiatives or the library or whomever wouldn't be able to just use the account we already have?
Yeah, you only need one account.
Well, it's unlimited users for Microsoft Teams, from what I understand. But that'd be a question for Ms. Hirschberger.
I think it would be a question for George. He knows more about it, but I know there's some things he has to do to get Microsoft Teams ready, and he has had a lot of issues with people being able to join Microsoft Teams and using it. Zoom seems to be a lot easier.
Mr. Montroy, you still have it? Go ahead, George.
If it's a public meeting, if the committee that's meeting is required to meet in public, yes, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, the moderator would take the phone call with Zoom, so. But. Mr. Gore? You're muted, my friend. You're muted.
Got it. All right, quick question. With Zoom and Microsoft Teams, I know we're looking towards the future, but have we gotten any word from like Mr. Clements, Mr. Zorn, when we could be opening up to in-person meetings to where we don't need Zoom or Microsoft Teams or anything like that? What phase, or what are we considered, phase 1B? Are we going to be able to have open meetings in person?
From what I'm hearing, it's the end of it's could be coming soon, but you still have a lot of groups that just don't feel comfortable meeting, and I'm sure that'll continue for a while. Okay. So I think it'd be good to still have that option in place, but go ahead, Phil, and you know quite a bit more about this.
Right now, we're mandated to have our meetings remotely, like we're doing, until February 1st. I'm sure we'll hear more before then as to whether or not we will be allowed to meet in person. The other component of that, Joe, is that the Open Meetings Act has been amended to allow public bodies to meet remotely like we're doing now. But that amendment to the Open Meetings Act expires March 31st of 2021. So that could be extended. I think it in large part depends on what the director of the Department of Public Health does And I think that in large part depends on how our COVID statistics are going between now and then.
To piggyback on that, the part of the problem is if we go back to meetings in person, so let's just say the township meetings, and they limit 20 people, you know, or whatever to a gathering or whatever, we open up to the public and 35 people show up, we have to close the meeting and end it. So that's part of the problem of where we're at. Even if they do open it, you know, you still have if there's a limitation to how many people you can have in a room, you take that gamble. And you can't use other rooms for TV or whatever. Mr. Montre?
No, nothing.
I'm sure you have.
No, I was just gonna say MTA had just sent that thing out about till January 31st or.
Okay. All right. So I don't really think we need approval to purchase a Zoom account. Ms. Hirschberger, do you want to handle getting a Zoom account? I think that's where the board wants to go. We don't need a motion.
Yeah, I can maybe George can set that up for us.
Okay. Okay.
George.
Well, we need to get a Zoom account, as low as the cost is. I mean, I wouldn't doubt it's going to get extended, and you know, we need to have an option for people. So look at getting it. We'll talk to you later about it, but look, we're going to look at getting a Zoom account, George.
I'll work with George and get something going.
Very cool. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to 8F, approval to restore the $25,000 to the ordinance department budget. Mr. Damon Cecil, thank you for being on tonight. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, board members. I'm here tonight asking that my budget be restored. I'm not asking for additional funding, just to be restored to what it originally was. I hope that each and every one of you have had an opportunity to review the packets that kind of gives you an overview of what our department does. An ordinance department is vital to any community wishing to keep their property values up. It's important when attracting new businesses, and even more vital to our school systems and bond issues. When you have lack of ordinance enforcement or code enforcement, as it's referred to in some communities, and the property values become deteriorated, your school system suffers losses, your property taxes, your values go down. And if you don't think so, like I said, you can travel up to Detroit, take a look in the east end of Detroit, or go down into the inner cities of some of these cities. In 2015 is when I came to this department under Supervisor Greg Stewart at the time. His request was that I improve this department. He provided me with some concerns and some issues at the time. And ever since I've been here, I've been working towards making those improvements. Our department, just so you know, is called upon by many departments, not only in the building here, but we are also contacted by Animal Control. We work with them. We work with the Drain Commission, the Road Commission. We work with the Sheriff's Department to take care of concerns with the residents. We're even called upon by some of the utility companies we make contact with when we have poles down and things like that that need to be repaired. For the new people that are here, this department enforces over 400 ordinances that the township currently has. A lot of times I spend reviewing some of those ordinances because they've been written long ago, and some of them we find cumbersome to enforce, basically just because of the wording or the fact that most of the time the public isn't even aware that these ordinances are in existence. One of the things that was brought to the forefront concern when I came here was the illegal burning that was going on. I'm sure most of you will remember evenings in this township. I know I do, even before I came onto the ordinance department, where there was nothing but a smoke haze over this community. That was something that needed to be addressed. It was one of the major concerns. We got several phone calls from citizens when I started. At that time, I approached Supervisor Peroni. I explained to him that in order to crack down on these burns, we needed additional staffing and personnel, to which he agreed to. In 2019, by having that personnel, we were able to shut down over 300 illegal burns. Now by doing this, in return, instead of the fire department getting called out on these burns through central dispatch, this saved their department time, manpower, to respond to more urgent matters in the community. And I'm sure Chief Massengill would attest to something of that. We've developed programs such as the SOS program. It's a unique program. It's not costing the taxpayers any amount of money because we have good citizens in our township that have stepped up to the plate and offered themselves as volunteers to help with our senior program. This program helps out because when I came here, what we would have done previously is the senior citizen would have gotten a letter maybe for their grass being too high, and we would end up sending somebody out there to cut it, and then that was going on their property taxes. As we know, senior citizens in the community are on fixed incomes. This was a concern of mine, that we would be costing them additional funding. Same thing with snow removal. By starting this program, we had volunteers, and we now call upon them. And those volunteers go out and at no charge take care of these issues for us and for the seniors so that we don't have to deal with that. We started a snowbird house check program. That was a result of an individual that had made some complaints against some neighboring properties. He left town during the winter months to go to Florida and was concerned that something would happen, that his property possibly would be vandalized. I thought that was a rather good concern considering where he was located. So we started this property check program, and at no charge, we're out and about as officers trolling for other issues and traveling through the township, going to check on other things. So doing this type of thing just seemed like a nice thing to do for the community. We've been to trade fairs prior to this pandemic hitting. We worked together as a group in here and created an ordinance booklet to pass out at the trade fairs to try to educate the community on the ordinances that we have that nobody seems to be aware of. And that's important. Because we've done those things, other communities have contacted me personally throughout the county, wanting to look at the models and the things and the paperwork and the things that we now do in a more professional manner than what was conducted years ago. COVID, unfortunately, hit this area, and we were shut down. And I was off for approximately a little over a week and was requested to come back along with someone else because the other departments, such as the sheriff's department and the fire department, were stressed with the calls that they were responding to and couldn't respond to the calls that people were calling in. So we did come back and we did respond and started taking calls on an essential basis. It was thought that through COVID, that the township was going to lose revenue. I was told that it was going to be cut by 40%. Mr. Peroni cut my budget, that 40%. I lost that $25,000. And although this never occurred, we did not lose 40%. So I'm asking that the board restore that $25,000 so I can continue providing the services that we've gotten our citizens and our residents accustomed to here. I heard on the comment from one of the citizens regarding personnel in this department. We currently have 2 part-time people and 2 seasonal people. And I would tell you this. Recently, we wanted to hire some people in here to continue the process. And we put this article in the paper. We put it out on our thing, on our regular website, and we got 2 applicants. That's because not a lot of people want to sign up to work in the ordinance department. When you get no benefits, the hourly wages aren't that high, and it's not going to attract young people to want to stay here, to keep motivating them to be here, because they're going to leave, such as Caitlin, who was working in this department. She found a full-time job with benefits and she moved on. These are the things that we face on a day-to-day basis in here. When we say that we're having people come and go, yes, you do. And Joe Gore can probably understand this better than everybody. When we went from the sheriff's department and we went to a 2-tier system, they're suffering the results of that now, because officers are coming, they're finding better benefits in other departments that we used to have, and they're moving on. Well, that's the same thing here. If we're going to go backwards in time and we're going to serve this community the way it used to be after we've got them accustomed to this, I just think that's wrong. So I'm asking you to please restore this budget so I can maintain the personnel, the professionalism that we're working towards, and also to serve this community in the way that we've been doing so. Thank you.
Mr. Gore? You're muted. You're muted.
Again, Damon, you're right. The 2-tiered system at the sheriff's department has been a debacle. Absolutely nightmare. As far as, and I remember when they also did the shared sacrifice, remember that when the budget got cut and we lost people, and they never replaced that budget, and we never have been back to the numbers that we were at. My question is, I know you had to project a 40% reduction in the state shared revenue, and the cuts had to come from somewhere. Remember that? Went through that nightmare on the school board also. Paul, what was it that made you need to cut $25,000 from the ordinance budget back when you had to? I know it had to be done, but what were you looking at? Were you looking at across the board cuts or just the ordinance?
I was looking at everything. Anywhere where we could possibly cut, the board had to take action. I mean, to find $1 million was not easy.
I don't disagree.
So my thinking was with the ordinance department was Damon could work Monday through Friday during the day, and Shayla could work nights and weekends. Well, that's not realistic for somebody by themselves to work nights and weekends every week after week, so that issue came up, and it wasn't realistic. So we had to keep one person on, especially with illegal burns coming. So we were trying to partner with the fire department so we could maintain that level of service that we've had for the last couple of years with them. And then we ended up receiving more money than state shared revenue and not having any of a loss because of the federal stepped in. But next year could be different. We could see a loss, and this board or previous boards is well prepared for that with the cuts that we made. But that was my thought when we did it. I thought we could maintain the level of service that we were providing to the best of our ability, and put a cut there. But I did tell the board, if we don't see a loss and things are okay, let's discuss it and we'll put it back in and keep it going. But if we did take the loss, we were prepared for it.
Okay. I appreciate that. And again, I know the cuts had to come from somewhere, especially when you're doing projections and everything like that. The county did that. They defunded the police many years ago, only they called it shared sacrifice. So if we can put that money back, and we have the money to do it, I would support that because it was in the budget before. They used it before. So I would be okay with putting that back.
Mr. Gore.
Any more discussion? Ms. Janzak?
So are we going to, since if we do restore ordinance budget, are we going to restore the maintenance? Are we going to restore all the departments that had things taken from them? Are we going to restore those as well? Since we didn't take a cut, we got more. I'm just asking.
That's up to the board. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, we're talking about ordinance right now. If anybody wants to bring any issues other than ordinance up and put it on a board meeting, I welcome it. You know, quite frankly, I don't see any other departments, in my opinion, that need to be restored. The maintenance is moving along just fine the way it is. Could this board discuss adding one more maintenance? Sure, we could. It's one of them things with maintenance to where it's borderline. You need a third person for funerals, potentially, if one guy's sick. You need a guy that can come in and help out. You need a third guy for snow plowing in the wintertime, which we have a seasonal that will come in and help right now. Other than that, the only time you would really need that third person, and we could keep a third full-time person busy if we wanted to, but we also have seasonal people during those times. You know, it's borderline, you know, with the maintenance. I'm not just flippantly putting it back on because residents keep calling and say they want to restore maintenance. I've looked at it very hard, and we've got a system in place now that works very well. You know, we're saving the community $90,000 a year roughly with one full-time guy gone. And if I feel like, you know, and right now, you know, we only have the two full-time and we have two seasonal people that aren't working any hours right now unless we need them. But, you know, we can, like I said, we can discuss it at a later date. It's one of the things that's borderline. As far as any other departments, I mean, put them on the agenda and put a plan together like Mr. Cecil just did and prove the need. Like assessing did when they wanted to bring on somebody. And, you know, that's all I would say. Mr. Bruning?
Yeah, this goes out to everyone. What would any reason or reasons be to not restore the money to them?
I don't think there is. The fact that our fire department is saving a large amount of money, and I don't know exactly what it is. It could be anywhere from $30,000 to $60,000 in illegal burns. 2 years ago, when we put out 330 illegal burns, and that number could be plus or minus a few, but the average is anywhere from $100 to $300 per run. You know, even if you do $200 per run, you're looking at, you know, $60,000. So I mean, the money that they're saving and letting the fire department respond to things that are very important, because they're getting a lot of calls a year for service. I don't see a reason not to, personally. And right now, the tough time is during these 2 down months when things are a little slower. You know, yeah, you could lay them off and save a few $1,000s, but then, you know, you got to train them all over again. And when you're talking about 400 plus ordinances and understanding how to work in the ordinance department professionally. You know, it used to be you throw on a t-shirt and your tennis shoes and you drive around the community, and it's not like that. We're trying to be extremely professional now, and it takes training, and, you know, and that's why we want to keep people on through the winter, and we keep them busy the best we can. So, Ms. Janzak, does you have a question? No? Okay. Mr. Montre?
Todd, are you asking specifically for this item, or are you saying for everything?
No, just for this item. I was just wondering if anyone had any reasons as to why we should not restore the 25,000. Paul already said we have it in the budget, and
so my reasoning would be to not open the floodgates. I'm very proud of how this board tightened their belt this last year and was pretty dead serious and made some, like, it was very impressive. And throughout that, it was a thing that I was hopeful, and I hope more than hopeful, that it wasn't something where we were just going, oh, look what we're doing, and we weren't really doing it. We're just gonna put everything back in a little bit. We were making it look good, but we weren't really making the cuts. We're just later gonna say, oh, I'm just joking, it's too much, and we'll go back to it. That's my apprehension. It's not as much of a ordinance department specific in my apprehensions. Just that does it open the floodgates to, and I had asked Mr. Peroni is it something that I would like to revisit. If we're going to revisit, let's revisit at budget time, which is just around the corner. I'd rather revisit everything. And it sounds like that is for this specific one, that we're in a tighter time situation, that it's probably gonna need addressed one way or the other before budget season.
If we wait till budget time, what we do is we'll miss burn season, because we'll have to, if we don't restore the budget today, tomorrow we lay off 2 employees, and during burn season, I'm telling you, a lot of calls come in, and a lot of calls that aren't even reported because of the system we have in place. When Damon gets a call on his cell phone and he goes there and come to find out there's no illegal burn, that doesn't get documented. There's no system in place for that, which that's something I believe that we need to move towards. But Mr. Cecil, you were going to say something?
I totally understand, Craig, what you're saying about the floodgates, and I understand, I even understand Krista's concern for the maintenance department. We've all suffered losses here regarding the thoughts that we're going to. The only thing is like Paul said, without this money that I'm going to need, we're not going to have the response that they're used to certain things. And I would hate to go backwards after we've done so much to cut down these burns, to do the things that we've been asked to do, and then you lose the personnel. And that's probably the most important thing, is that we train these people that we get. And granted, like I said, we're not paying them top dollar. They're not getting benefits. They're not going to stay here for any length of time because of that. I mean, I would like to see, if you're going to have an ordinance department or a code enforcement department, and we're going to step up to the plate and be professional here, at some time in the future, whether it's when I'm here or the next 10 years from now or whatever, I would like to see the township have some kind of a program in place. We're the only department in this entire building that has no opportunity for advancement here. And you're losing good people that would probably stay here, people that like doing this job and working in the community, but they're not able to because when they need benefits, they just don't have them. Shayla has been here for 11 years and dedicated her time to this community and never was offered full time ever. I mean, I just think this is, it's a sad situation that we're in this department. And it's been said before that, well, that's what it is. Well, this department is important to the community, as I told you. You can take a look up north at other communities that have code enforcement. You can go down south to the city of Toledo and look at it. You get what you pay for. We've stepped up. We've got radios. Trudy was instrumental in helping me get a grant so that we could get body cameras. I mean, we're professionalizing our department, and in doing so, like I said, I appreciate the support that I'm seeing, and I don't mind answering the questions.
Mr. Steiner.
So, and I'm again on the fence here with this as well, because I can tell you right now, there are other departments, I guarantee you, they could put together a presentation that makes sense, and they could probably come in and justify and say why they need their budget back as well. I'm not 100% convinced that the state's going to be giving us the money in this next fiscal budget.
Yeah.
Granted, this department, without seeing all the different percentages in front of me, I don't know, did they take a higher percentage cut than other departments? We'd have to look at them one by one and then compare that way. Just a couple of the notes I see already out of the department through December 31st, the wages are approximately 71% of the budget already in ordinance. Of course, that drives up your FICA and those other costs as well. The uniform budget, I don't understand why we're at 86% of our uniform budget in 6 months.
Yeah.
And those are just a couple of the items I noticed. And I know, Damon, you've done a lot of hard work and trying to put some programs together. I don't I don't deny that there's been some nice work done and some benefits to the community. I really struggle at this point just because of not knowing where this revenue share is going to come from. You figure we're probably within a month or so of starting that new budget session. And, you know, I don't know, they start getting some rumors of just how much revenue sharing we're going to get. But even by the time we get to our final budget that is submitted for a vote, we still don't have 100% certainty of what we're going to get. Generally, it's a decent guideline, but we don't have it dead on. I just don't think the federal government's going to be giving up the money this year to support the states for these revenue shares. And that's probably my biggest concern over going a full $25,000 adding into that budget.
Okay. Ms. Janzak?
I hear a lot that the concern is with burning, and I understand the illegal burns are a concern. So if we're trying to project to save for the illegal burns, and I have no problems with who we have or anything as officers, why do we have seasonal officers now if we're so concerned with illegal burns coming in the spring? We're eating up the budget for payroll, and like Mr. Steiner said, that's really high. I'm just confused at why we have to have seasonal employees right now when we're so concerned on burning. We don't have obviously right now we don't have much snow, which we would be enforcing that. I guess I'm just confused at why we have seasonal that isn't seasonal is what I'm saying. It doesn't seem like it's continual. It's not here. They're here for this season and they're done. Do you know what I'm making sense?
Do you want to answer that, Dave? Or you want me to?
I do. The reason, again, and this will kind of also go with Mr. Steiner, you talked about uniform budget, okay? We wear uniforms. So we hire people and we give them uniforms to wear to be out into the public to represent. If we're going to do it the way that you're talking about, Krista, and we're going to lay off the two people that we have that are seasonal, and we're going to go down to just me and Shayla, then the uniforms that we purchased for those people, that goes out the door. Then those people that we spent time training to do this job, they go out and they get another job. I got to start all over. And that was the reason why we kept the people. And they're not just doing burns, they're doing other things here. You know, it'd be like, for example, in your department, if you just trained Amy to do this and then you got rid of Amy and then you turned around and tried to find somebody that was doing the job as good as Amy and you couldn't find them. Okay. You guys have a full-time department. Every place in here is full-time. This department is not full-time. We're here dedicated to the community full-time, but we don't have the benefits of being full-time. And I can't keep the personnel like you can because you do have a full-time avenue for your department. Rick, I can't answer whether or not you're going to get the revenue. I know that it's in the budget. It was cut out of my budget. We do liquor inspections. Those liquor inspections bring in over $20,000 a year to the general fund. And I just, like I said, I'm not asking that we get more money. I'm not asking to hire additional personnel. I'm asking to be made whole here to continue so that I don't have to put people off, turn around and try hard to look for somebody again in the spring. And if I don't get anybody, then the burden falls on the fire department and other departments because we just can't be here 7 days a week with two people.
Okay. Mr. Bruning?
Yeah, my question's for Damon. Damon, as far as like complaints, do you guys only go out if someone calls and makes a complaint, or if you guys are out driving on your own, you see something, you'll go say something?
Todd, we do both. It depends on the complaint. I mean, illegal burns, we do not wait for complaints because it was such an issue that we shut it down. Certain things like blight and junked unlicensed vehicles were complaint based. But the problem is, and Paul touched on it basically, is again, in a police department, and Joe knows this, in a police department atmosphere, when central dispatch gets a phone call, they generate a number, and regardless if Joe goes or I go and it materializes into nothing, it's a recorded complaint. We answer calls that are the same way, but we have no way, we don't have a dispatch center. So those calls aren't documented. So we go out on a lot of calls. The ones that are substantiated are the ones that will generate a complaint on. So it's kind of like that, you know, I mean, this is what we do. I mean,
Ms. Hirschberger?
So this is nothing against Damon. You do a great job. The programs are wonderful, but maybe we need to think of restructuring the ordinance department. Maybe we need a third part-time person rather than the seasonal, because the uniforms, you're correct. Every time we bring someone in for seasonal employment, then they come, they go, we lose that money. Seasonal in our policy says that they come in for a season. We bring in someone seasonal, we're supposed to let this board know how much they're getting, who it is, and the season they're going to be here. So far, ordinance, the season has just been all year. That's not how seasonal is supposed to work. So maybe Damon needs a part-time person rather than 2 seasonal people to make that department whole. Because right now, at the rate we're going, with just Damon and Shayla, they're going to be over budget. That's if we get rid of the part-time people right now and we say no to this. They're going to be over $17,000 over budget just in there for the 2 employees. If you add seasonal in there, I don't even think the $25,000 is going to be enough to cover unless you cut the seasonal people down. And you would have to do that immediately. So I think it's not a matter of $25,000 being added back. It might be a restructure of the whole department.
Well, and I'm not
to make it work, just like the rest of us had to restructure and do things to make sure that our budgets were going to be. I think your department needs restructured and relooked at.
Okay, and I'm not disagreeing with that. With the part-time thing, the difference again, Trudy, and I stress this, is that each one of your departments are full-time. I don't have a problem. I had Caitlin, who was part-time. She's a young person. She spent the time here. But again, there is no avenue to get to full-time. There is no benefit for a young person to come here and stay. I would love to keep these people, you know, if we could do that. What happens is these part-time people have other jobs. I have the 2 seasonal people I have other obligations. Amy, that is why I'm in the situation I'm in, is because Amy has another job because this isn't enough. Sam has another job because this isn't enough. There's no benefits.
Damon, what if we get somebody else like you?
Well, Trudy, we put those applications out. You saw what we got back. So you know what is coming in. And again,
but that was seasonal. Maybe if we went for part-time and a set salary, maybe we would get some better applications. That's all I'm saying.
Keep this in mind. The 2 people that we have are brand new.
Right.
So I would want to see how they work out, and in 5 months, if they like the job or they want to stick around, at that point we bring them up for part-time, because at part-time, with seasonal right now, we can let them go if it's not working out. But once they're part-time, it changes things a little bit. But
Right.
That was the main thing I was going to say, is with the seasonal in the wintertime, it's training and then losing your people. This department, keep in mind, this department right now, it's budgeted for. We went above and beyond, in my opinion, as a department, to really say, hey, we're willing to do whatever to get that 40%. We've got to do it. But the point is if no cuts get made, let's restore it. No cuts were made. We actually had a surplus for the 40%. And I'm not saying we could see a reduction, but we have cut so much and done so much that, we're well prepared for that. I would just say at this point, Damon, do you have anything else you want to add?
I will say one last thing in regards to looking like we've hired a bunch of people. I did hire a seasonal individual prior to Amy. Due to the COVID, that individual was pulled from my department and put up at the front doors to work the COVID center. And he was working 5 days a week up there, and then trying to work 2 days a week on the weekends when I needed him here. And he was working 7 days a week nonstop. That's just not possible. And we didn't have any answer, so we had to bring somebody else in. And in the meantime, like I said, Caitlin left, so she was part-time and she was gone. So, you know, Sam came in as a seasonal. We put out applications. We got 2. We brought in Amy, who's brand new and just started. I mean, it's.
We actually got 3 applications, Damon.
Yeah,
but
nonetheless, that is why we had the people. It seems like they've been here forever. It's because of the front door. I lost the person that I tried to keep, and I lost a part-time person to a full-time job with benefits. So,
and I'll add one more thing, then we'll move forward. We need to move forward with the meeting, but you know, yes, we bring up illegal burns because that's your raw savings. You're saving money for the fire department, but that doesn't mean seasonal ordinance. Seasonal ordinance was on dog complaints last week, and I got a call. We get calls from residents almost every weekend. Hey, this is going on. And it's nice to have people that can handle a situation right away rather than asking the sheriff's department or the fire department to burden them with some of these things. You know, so it is extremely convenient. We get a lot of calls. So, okay, with no further discussion, I look for a motion. And I'll be happy to make it because being in my position, I've seen it for a long time, and I think it's super important. I think we've gotten to a place where we're delivering a great level of service, and I can tell you I've gotten many letters from residents that are thrilled that burning is down without cutting it out, without telling the resident you can't do it. So I'll make a motion that we restore the $25,000 to the ordinance department. Reasons being is it's budgeted for through last year's budget, and we have the money. And I think it's a great service to our community for the amount of money that we're asking for. So.
I'll support.
Okay, motion is supported by Mr. Gore. Any more discussion? I just want to say, yes, Trudy is right. If it's been a weird year with our department, especially ordinance. Without, if the board does deny this, we'll probably have to lay off one more, or we're going to need to have the board at least put $15,000 to $18,000 back in the budget right now, just to maintain Shayla and Damon for the rest of the year until we get back to normal year. So, Mr. Montry.
Shirley, what was the amount? Did you have it handy, like just to get just as is, not without seasonal, whatever, to get through? What more are they going to need in that budget?
It's not 17,000. Is what I figured.
This is just an estimate based on previous hours that they put in. Approximately 17,611.
Okay.
And Trudy, to add to that, when I looked at the numbers through December, like I said, it was 70.79% or close to 71%. If you do the math on that, that would put them at about 142% of budget for wages through the fiscal year of June.
Correct. I know. My concerns are just like Mr. Montry. We're opening the floodgates. A lot of departments lost money.
And I just want to just say one thing. I've heard a couple of times, well, it's in the budget. We just want, the money back. Well, if it's in the budget, why are we sitting here discussing this? It's not in the budget. It was removed from the budget, and it's being asked to be put back in, so it's not in the budget. So let's be real clear.
Let me just say this. There's only a couple of people willing to step up during this time and put many things on the agenda to take away. I can tell you that right now. And I was willing to do whatever it took to keep this community in the green. So, if we don't want to put it back, don't put it back. I mean, it's up for a vote right now. There will be a level of service lost. We've tried to maintain that through being creative, and we're doing the best we can. So That's all I can say is, you will see, we'll see a loss in service to the community, especially during burn season. I'm telling you, the calls okay, we have a motion and, supported by Mr. Gore. No more discussion. Ms. Hirschberger, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Peroni,
Aye.
Mr. Gore,
Aye.
Mr. Steiner,
No.
Ms. Janzak,
No.
Mr. Bruning,
No. I love burning leaves.
Mr. Montry,
No.
Hirschberger votes no.
Okay, the motion failed 5-2.
Can I make
I'll
a
make-
motion? Can I make a
ahead.
motion for 20,000 to at least get a budget adjustment to where it needs to be, and then it's going to have to go from there.
Make a motion. Is that a motion?
Yeah, motion to go 20,000 to the ordinance department for salary.
Okay, I'll support. We have a motion to support. Any discussion?
And then 39,000.
Okay, seeing none, could you call the roll, please? Damon, you need to mute your line, Damon.
I'm sorry, the motion was $20,000 for salary. Is that what you said, Mr. Montry?
Yeah, ordinance department to wages.
Okay.
And will that
we
get
have
them through
Peroni.
to, will that get them through to June? Budget
Yes,
wise?
yes, it will. We won't be able to maintain the seasonal, but it'll get us through. We might be able to maintain, we'll have to look hard at it, but we might be able to maintain one. But
Did you get a second on that yet?
yes, I support it. Okay,
I was-
would you call the
I
roll,
was-
please?
I was
Oh,
gonna
did you have
say-
more discussion? Go ahead.
Just a quick comment. It's not going to make a bit of difference between now and the first meeting in February. I think if we're going to do anything, consider raising this at all, we need a hard factual number for an increase. It may be 10, maybe 15.
The number Trudy gave you is pretty much exact. And so if you went 20, you're a couple $1,000s over. These board meetings are filled up and we're going to keep having a lot of stuff. So, I mean, we can push it off, but I don't think it's necessary. Mr. Montry?
That's kind of what I had already looked at that and had thought those same things. Like, seeing it's at 70%. I figured it was 17, 18, and you can get it done without having to make multiple. It gives yourself a little leeway. You're pretty accurate, and you don't have to make another budget adjustment or whatever. If you make it 17 or 18, if you put it at 20, that was my reasoning at least.
Okay, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Montry,
Aye.
Mr. Peroni,
Aye.
Mr. Steiner,
No.
Mr. Gore,
Aye.
Ms. Janzak,
No.
Mr. Bruning,
No.
I'm voting no, just because I would like to bring it back with some hard numbers, exactly what they need.
Yep.
I don't want to keep going back and forth jumping.
Okay, so the
I
board
think we
does
should
not want
sit down.
the board does not want us to lay off the 2 employees then? We want to push this till February? Or does the board want me to lay the people off because we don't have the money? We're just going to keep adding to it. I need to know. Because my goal was tonight, if we don't get the money, I'm laying them off tomorrow. So I need some direction.
Well, if the money's not there, the money's not there.
Money's not there right now. So if we lay them off, I'm just telling you, it's not easy to find people to do it. It takes, so. Okay, all right, moving on. Okay, item 8G, approval of a salary increase for assessor position. Thank you, Damon, for being on. We really appreciate it. Okay, you have the information in front of you. This is the assessing department. A lot has changed since I've been here for the positive. When I came here, this department just quite frankly was a mess. It was a revolving door. We had issues with seasonal people. We had people working from home. It was very difficult. So my goal was to really rework the department over time. When Christine came to assist Alan, in the role and getting through the year, she came with 18 years experience, and she is a level 3. She brought stabilization to the department. And since she's taken over, we're doing it all on one less than full-time employee, because that is one department that we didn't replace when Christine took over. She said she could handle it, and she had a system that she could put in place to where she didn't need that third full-time person. So I commend her on that, and I appreciate the hard work she puts into it. We've done research around the county for the head assessor positions. You have that information in front of you. I know Frenchtown's anywhere from 75 to 85,000. Dundee's 80,000. Like I said, you have the information there that kind of points those things out. If the AMR is wrong, the board signed an intergovernmental agreement with Mike Wolford, and he would come in at $15 to $30 per parcel. Currently, right now, we're doing it at roughly $4 per parcel. When you have City of Monroe doing it for $9.76 a parcel, Frenchtown at $8.43 a parcel, Monroe Township at $11.70 a parcel. You have Dundee at $18.91 a parcel, and like I said, Bedford's at $3.94 per parcel. So, in doing this, I want the board to think about and really look at the position and not so much the employee. You have a position to where you're required to be a level 3 and to get a role signed at the end of the day. And I also want the board to think, if we were discussing putting this position out for bid right now to hire somebody, what would be your starting salary to take over a department like this? Quite frankly, when Christine took over, she was sitting there, had the level 3, we were kind of blessed to have that here already. But if we were to start over and put it out like we did with Chief Massengill and go statewide, because you have to be certified in the state of Michigan, somebody wouldn't come knocking on the door probably for $59,000 a year. When they're hiring half a mile up the road, or not a half mile, but 10 miles up the road in Frenchtown at $85,000 a year. This is not a growing field. The average age of an assessor is 50. There's not an abundance of assessors in the marketplace, and that is why you're seeing a lot of contracting going on in communities with mainly Rainius. But just to give you an idea, one day in Raisonville Township for 1 day a week's roughly $46,000. That's for 1 day. And, if we were to contract, we wouldn't have the employee sitting here to answer walk-ins or questions. It goes to a voicemail and then they call back. That's how that would work. The colleges are not pushing this curriculum, and the state does certify. Not just anybody can walk in here and run this department. Nobody here at Township Hall could do it, to walk in there and sign that role. It's something you have to be. So to compare it to other departments that you don't have to be certified, or you can't really do that. You have to be certified. I can tell you that department is running the smoothest it's ever ran. They have a procedure in place for splits. We have a timely and a lot more efficient than it used to be. Everybody's sharing work, so things are just moving along well. I'm going to let Christine talk for a moment. She has a few things she wants to say about the position and about, so Christine, you on?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Good evening. First off, I'd like to thank you for taking the time this evening to review the head assessor and land division coordinator position salary. I've received some updated information via email from a couple of the county units after the packet deadline. So I received Exeter and Whiteford salary updated, and with the changes, including those updated salaries, the average assessor pay parcel differs 45 cents less than what is reflected there on your spreadsheet in your packet. So I believe that brings it down to $13.76 for an average. Also included in your packet are the Michigan Advanced Assessing Officer positions for hire with the state. Please note that these positions do not certify assessment roles, so they're support staff positions. And also, just if you take note too, in that head assessor positions are typically not posted at this time of year, so I couldn't find any comparable to use for head positions other than what the county is paying. I can go outside the county too, but I didn't. But anyway, Bedford Township processes the most land divisions in Monroe County. Land divisions affect the township's annual parcel count. With the recent rezoning changes of approximately 750 parcels to Ag 2, and a PUD development of 136 units, as well as other potential developments occurring, I anticipate the number of parcels to continue to grow in Bedford Township significantly in the future. I've held the head assessor and the land division coordinator position for the past 6 months, with only an approximate $3,500 annual salary increase. My salary before the promotion was $55,180, and my salary after my promotion was $58,768, or is, I should say. My employment with Bedford Township began in July 2016 as a contracted employee to provide mentorship services to the previous assessor. In May of 2017, my status was changed from contract employee to a Bedford Township employee as the assistant assessor, and then again to head assessor and land division coordinator in July 2020. From that time to now, I have been involved in staff management, reorganization of the assessing department due to the loss of a full-time position, keeping up with legislative changes that also include changes regarding assessing reform. My qualities as an employee have not changed from being cooperative, welcoming of any responsibilities bestowed upon me, and being a team player throughout all of the township departments. I've always tried to render my experiences and services in the best way possible that benefits Bedford Township and fall within the Michigan General Property Tax Act. And that's all I've got. Thank you for your consideration.
Hey, thank you, Christine. Okay, anybody have any thoughts or questions? Mr. Montrag?
Yeah, just going through the budgets and everything similar to stuff with ordinance and being apprehensive in nature toward these kind of increases and whatnot. Just knowing what that department's working with and knowing, I believe we are $70,000 just in wages in that department. You're $70,000 less than the previous year, and with them being on budget, you still have, even with the increase, just due to the amount of people that they're running that department with one less person, even with a salary increase, that you're still, I mean, what, $55,000 under what that department was running at just in wages alone, not in total budget. So that was just something that I noticed, that outside of competitive wages for the position. It was something else that I was taking into consideration that I wanted to share.
Mr. Bruning?
Yeah, after we just denied Cecil a request for money, there's no way I'm going to feel comfortable giving a person a raise. It's just not happening for me, anyways.
Hey, Mr. Gore?
When I'm looking at it, it looks like it's, and this is just rough math off the top of my head, it's like a 27.5% pay raise with one swipe of the pen. And I can't get behind a 27.5% pay raise. I mean, if there would have been a pay raise over a step increase over a number of years, but if we have a 27.5% pay raise and then we go into contract talks, or you go into contract talk with the union and they only want a 2 or 3% pay raise, and we argue over that, it's a $16,000 a year pay raise, like 27%, and I just can't get behind that right now.
Yeah, I get it. On paper right now, it looks that way, but you have to keep in mind that position has been underpaid for years. And right now, we have 14,930 parcels, okay, compared to French towns at 10,000. And they're paying their head assessor $85,000 a year for somebody that they just hired. So if Christine, I'm not saying this is going to happen, quit. You contract with Rainey is probably at 200,000 plus. You contract and look for another person to take over the department. And if you think you're going to find somebody to come in at 59, it ain't going to happen. Just the position that are qualified enough to do it. And two, they are not going to come to Bedford and take over this animal of a community as far as how large it is for 59,000. We would have to offer it at 80,000 to attract the right person to do the job. That's all I'm saying. It's not the forget about Christine. It's not the position. It's the board's past faults for not keeping up with where it should be. And it was always looked at employees or whatever. But as far as the position itself, forget about her. It's underpaid.
And I completely understand that. And going back to the school board days when we did superintendent searches, we had to up, from 110,000 to 120, 125,000 a year just to attract the top quality candidates. But here, I would have liked to have seen something more of a step increase over a number of years first before just one vote, 16 grand more a year. I can't get behind it right now.
Just to keep in mind, we did this in planning 2 years ago to where it was underpaid for years, and it was Trudy, what was it, a $10,000 increase or something like that?
Not quite that much.
It was quite a bit, but yeah.
I would have to look, but it wasn't that much.
Okay, Mr. Montre?
I completely get and was in the same position as Joe and Todd when I was first looking at this, just going, especially like what Todd said, how am I going to say no to the ordinance and then follow that with this? And digging into it, knowing you're saving $70,000 a year because Christine is running that department with an entire position. And it's not like you're talking about an entire position of some seasonal entry level position. You took away the head assessor and she's still running that department with the former department lead not being there. Everything else is being equal. And then putting on top of that, like what Paul's saying, you do have to consider the alternatives, because I get it 100%, but if Christine leaves, okay, how are you going to fill that position? And what are your options for filling that position with anyone else? It is you're in a different position. It's not just when we promoted Christine into that position that we're not doing we're keeping everything equal for right now, and like we're coming back to look at it. And I'm not opposed to setting something up where you're doing some sort of step increase. I'm not against that either, but I really think this board needs to consider it not just on face value. There's a lot of factors in this decision that need to be thought through. Like you said, if you go, okay, you're gone, Christine leaves tomorrow because she's not happy about this, and then you're paying Rainius $200,000.
And I don't know if that's exactly.
I know exactly, but it's like it's a similar situation.
It's a total different operation contracting. You don't have the same level of service. Mr. Steiner?
Yeah, once again, we go back to the wages and what the budget says. The budget for assessing wages right now currently showing 61.3% used through December.
And
so here again, we're already over budget in assessing wages.
Rick, there's two lines for assessor. It's assessor and appraiser.
And the other,
we're looking at because I saw the same thing, but you're at 40 and 60. You're at a wash and almost under budget between the two right now.
Okay, so but you're still over it, and if you continue that pace, you're going to get even worse because you start going out into the field and doing more work when the weather starts to open up as well.
And the hours won't change for that.
What?
He's working the same hours right now as far as field work, our guy. So.
But still, when you push that out there to the rest of everyone that's sitting in Township Hall to request a 27.6% increase, also higher than any full-time elected official sitting in that building, to pay more for that position. And I am going to say it almost feels threatening on the position of saying, this is why I need this money or else. You brought up planning a minute ago. We also increased a planning associate that now has over 25 years within the township. And that person's not even anywhere close to $75,000 a year. So again,
keep in mind that's a non-statutory position. This is a statutory position, so it's a big difference. And we were paying a finance director, which is a non-statutory position, $77,000 before he left. And I understand he was here, but we just hired a fire chief at $75,000 just 3 years ago because the position required that. And we got very lucky with him. The position required that salary right from the rip. We didn't start him off at 55 and give him increases over 6, 7, 8 years. He would have never came. He came because this is what I need. This is what we're going to offer at because of the position. Same thing with assessing. We have to get with the times with the assessing position. If we want to maintain that level of service and professionalism, we have to pay it. And to say elected officials, I don't even like hearing that, to be quite honest with you, because none of these elected officials have to have any qualifications or experience to come in here and be a part of these departments. You don't have to have nothing, and you could come in here. We don't deserve more than these people that are qualified and have level 3 certifications to do these positions, such as fire chief. I don't even like hearing elected officials being compared to these employees that work here. So, do you have anything else?
The only reason I brought up elected officials because that has been brought up by elected officials in the past about their salaries, and I'm not going to go any further with that.
Yeah, I mean, that was actually brought up when I talked to Ms. Herzberger that, elected officials don't make that much. So you're right. Ms. Janzak?
I did some homework myself, and I contacted some of these townships and stuff. First of all, Dundee is contracted to Rainius and Rainius. So in my opinion, that $80,000, that's out the window for me, first of all. Frenchtown, they do $85,000, but they also require an associate's degree in related field plus a minimum of 5 years property appraisal experience in all classes of property. Okay, they must hold and maintain their MAAO, which I know she does. So that's with Frenchtown. With Monroe Charter, I contacted them, and theirs is a tiered payout. Like they have their Michigan Advanced Assessing Officer. They have 3 tiers. They have their base. They have their pay after 5 years, which is $57,512, and then they max out, which is after several years at 3% raises at $86,000. Their Michigan Master Assessing, that's for the masters, which is an equivalent to a certified level 4. They, after 5 years, only make $63,000. So I have no problem with something, but to me, I just have a hard time with the amount. That's just my opinion, especially since we just told Damon, sorry, we're not giving you any money.
Yep.
Mr. Hirschberger?
Did Todd have his hand up before me?
I don't know. Go ahead.
I was just gonna echo the same thing Krista did. We can give her something, but I think that the 27% is just, we need a tiered system. The board needs to create some kind of tiered system for wage increases. I don't think giving 27% tonight is appropriate.
I mean, to be quite honest with you, when it was discussed, it was shocking to me as well. But when you look at the stats of what this township is, 15,000 parcels compared to 10,000 in Frenchtown, and she has 18 years experience. She is highly qualified. And like I said, from the beginning, take her out of it. Let's talk if we were putting, what would you guys, looking at what we have here, what would you say we would go after to start in this position? Would you really put it at 60,000 or 59,000? No, we probably wouldn't. Because you wouldn't get anybody is what I'm saying. But like I said, Mr. Bruning.
Well, this is what I was going to say. We just elected or appointed a compensation committee. Well, we see what they have to say.
They just do elected officials. The compensation committee has nothing to do with employees. That's this board.
Deal with it.
What's that?
Okay. Yeah, I did. That's fine then. I thought they would do everything, but.
With the union, I mean, you bring up a good point, Mr. Gore, but the union's kind of always on the same level as this board, with the 2% raises. I mean, they're right where they need to be, and I think every position in this township, for the most part, is pretty close where they need to be, other than that position. And in my opinion, and probably should be your guys' opinion, it's the most important position in the township government center. So it's mandated. It's very important. And I'm telling you, there's not a lot of people out there that can do the job, that are qualified. So we don't have a revolving door over there anymore for a few good reasons. They all enjoy the work environment. It's a great place to work. Everybody gets along, and they have a great team where everybody has, in line with what they do. Everybody has a setup every day. It works really well. So, and there's no threats here. So don't take it that way. I don't even like hearing that being put out there. I'm just telling you realities that in a month, this board could be having discussions about what we want to do for that position, because it's heavily underpaid. So, okay. All right. I'll look to make a motion that we approve the assessor's salary be increased to $75,000 effective immediately.
You're gonna die. I'll support.
Okay, motion supported. Any more discussion?
Well, let's vote, and then we'll discuss.
Okay, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Peroni?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
No.
Mr. Steiner?
Nay.
Mr. Gore?
You're muted, but I
Muted,
he said no.
No.
Ms. Janzak?
No.
Hirschberger votes no.
Okay, the motion failed 5-2. Mr. Montfort?
That, I was just gonna throw it out there. If, and does anybody have a starting point or any sort, again, there's $70,000 annually being saved in that department right now because of this. So it's like I said, there's a lot of factors to, like, I get it, but does anybody have something that they want to say, let's start, what, like, do you have a plan or an idea?
Nope.
Okay, Todd doesn't have any ideas. Anybody else have any ideas?
Let's see what our budget is.
Well, we know what our budget is. We're about $900,000 in the green right now, because that's what we cut out back in the fall. So the board, as far as financially, we have $1.8 million in our rainy day budget. We're $900,000 in the green. And those numbers, if you guys are looking right now, probably are a little off, because our finance department's been an absolute mess for the past 3 years, and we're cleaning it up right now with our amazing new guy that's in there, and they're working on it. But I'm telling you, there's the money is there, and you can get the information from our finance director or finance manager. I wouldn't be here right now because I'm the one that was pushing all the cuts back in the fall. I wouldn't be here asking for these things if I didn't think they were important.
Pull out the balance sheet in this packet, 3C, go to the page, I don't got page numbers on them, flip through to the assessing departments. It's only, I think it's 3 pages in, 1, 2, so turn 2 pages. On that, the front of that 3rd page is the assessing department. You can see your second row, top line, 58,768. That's the salary for Christine. You're at 41% budget. And then below that is 76,116. That's at 61% budget. Between the two of those, you're about $5,000 under budget currently. And if you look at to the left of that, you see the 71,945, and then below that 133,000. That is your budget for that department the year before, as far as wages go, which is you're looking at between, that's 205,000 as opposed to this year's budget, 135,000, around 70 grand, and that you're saving in your wages right there from that department, how that department's being ran now. So you can, to not look at the overall budget, but to have a feel, where are you at? That's where you're at as far as this decision goes. So that's what I'm saying. You're saving, all things have to be considered in a decision.
I would make a recommendation that the board offer something at this point.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Does anybody have a?
Ms. Hirschberger?
How about at least 2? Maybe we go up to 62,000.
I mean, I don't. It's up to the board.
Does anybody else?
Mr. Montfort?
Would you have a plan, or how would you do some sort of tiered system with that? If, say, you started with that, then where would you go?
Then we'd have to build something. I mean, I don't have anything in mind at this point. Okay. I'm just basing it off of how we raised Karen a little bit at a time based on her performance and what we saw. And it was just a group effort for hers. So that's what I'm basing it off of. But I don't know if I have any support for that at all.
I'm just doing some math here real quick. Going up to 62, Trudy, what is that, about 7-8% or so?
5.5.
5.5. Mm-hmm. There's no question, Paul, I do agree with you. If we were starting from scratch, there's no way. I mean, a township our size would have to come in a little bit higher than 58,000. Absolutely, I agree with that 100%. But we're not at that point right now. But Trudy, I'm I'm with you. We can offer at least something right now, a raise. 5.5% is not a bad raise, really.
Now, so a question of that, Joanne Trudy. 5.5% now, also subject to whatever the township employees get in a couple months?
Well, when I was looking at this position did not have the 2% because Paul had raised her, so he didn't put that in. So no, it would be the 2.5, the 2% would not be on the board. It would be this percent would get her a starting pay. In February, it would not change.
Yeah, that's why I just want to check where you're going with that. And then if we do anything, we need to talk about, like you said, building out a schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I look for a motion for something.
I'll make the motion to raise the assessor's pay to $62,000.
Okay, do I hear support? Support of Ms. Janzak. Discussion, Mr. Steiner?
No, I didn't take my hand down.
Just call a roll, please.
Hirschberger votes aye. Ms. Janzak?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Okay, moving on to 8H, approval to allow the head assessor to add the agenda items. Christine, if you'd like to speak to that. Typically, right now, only board members, elected officials are allowed to add agenda items. You know, do you have something you want to say, Tree?
Before we start, I just want to let everyone know that if you look at our township board policy that we just approved, it says that only township board members can.
That's why I have it on the agenda.
Say that.
That's why I have it on the
So,
agenda.
I guess I'm a little confused why she needs to. Why can't she
Well,
just go through one of us?
That's what she was going to explain. Go ahead, Christine.
I guess the last few times I tried to submit some information to the board for some approval. Things weren't added, and the items that I asked to be added to the agenda are items that need to be approved, that are state mandated, and that that have to be approved by you annually as a board. One example is for exemption applications and information for that. That's got to be approved annually. And another item that, in fact, will be added to the agenda meeting is our land restriction combination agreements that we have, and I expect to see a lot of those coming in the future. So yeah, those are like the main reasons why I'm asking to have permission to add agenda items, just to alleviate any confusion from the future on who I'm allowed to go to with these items. I was told I had authority from any board member that could add items to the agenda, and when I handed to the clerk, I did not get that response back. So I'm just, it's just to alleviate any issues in the future, and to avoid, everyone's busy in their departments as well, and it will alleviate some time to having to go to somebody else to say, can you add this item to the agenda? It needs to be added because it's mandated. That's all.
Ms. Hirschberger?
Chrissy, when you send stuff to be added to the agenda, when you send it, and I do have your notice for the hardship exemption, all you said was see attached for board approval. Let me know if you have any questions. So I was going to put it on an agenda that I knew didn't have as much on it. It didn't say I need this on this first agenda, or do you have enough room to put it on this agenda? So I was going to put it on the one that we didn't have as much. So, but all you have to do is
to your deputy, and I asked her to put it on the next
agenda because we do have taxpayers that needed this application approval that have been requesting it. So otherwise, I wouldn't have cared what agenda you put it on. But it needed to be on the next one because it needed to be approved for the taxpayer.
Okay, but what I'm saying is she doesn't have authority to add anything. And I told her to put this on the one agenda item because it didn't say it had to be put on the certain.
That's the thing. Like, I wasn't informed it wasn't going to be put on the agenda from you or from her.
Well, hey, I
So
think
this is why we have just board members put them on, because then we're not arguing with employees.
Well,
not just
like I said, it would alleviate this conversation if you just allowed me to add them and it would be done and over with. That's all.
okay. So, like I said, her stuff is state mandated. Not any employee ever puts on agenda items. It's there's certain, like the Chief Massingill. I mean, quite frankly, I don't think he needs to ask to put stuff on. You know what I mean? When he has stuff that needs to be done, we get it done. Same thing with Planning Commission. They bring stuff down, and I know you added, Trudy, but Mr. Bruning?
Yeah, I think this one's pretty simple, Paul. Right now, it's against our township policy. Only board members can add items. This until we change it. This is.
You're cutting out, Todd.
Froze up.
Oh.
You don't have.
Yeah, well, cause you got me.
That's why it's here to the board, because the board could amend that or allow that. You know, if something's on the policy and we bring it here because it's not it's just like the supervisor's allowed to spend $500 if it's in the policy. If it's not working, I bring it here and I say, hey, it would be very helpful to have a $1,500 spending limit, and then we amend the deal. It's not a big deal. It doesn't take a lot of time and money. Mr. Steiner?
Well, the example I just heard was talking about the poverty exemption, which is an annual thing. So if we didn't get that in plenty of time to get to a board meeting with proper notice, I don't know why that didn't happen. I'm going to go with our current board policy, and therefore I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to deny anyone but the township board members putting items on the agenda.
Okay, do I have a support?
Support.
Supported by Mr. Gore. Any more discussion? Mr. Montry?
So where does that leave situations like Chief?
Well, I'm sure Chief just brings stuff to Trudy and Trudy adds it.
Follows the chain of command.
That's what I would assume is happening right now.
Yes.
Same thing with Christine. 20 years, Christine's been handing, or whoever the assessor has been just walking over the clerk's office and they add it. But we have this policy now and, so it's not a huge deal. She just walks it over to the supervisor's office, supervisor adds it. So, okay, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Ms. Janzak?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0. Christine, thank you so much for being on. Okay, moving on to comments from the public. Comments limited to 2 minutes for each individual. Okay. Good afternoon. Could you state your name and address and go ahead with your 2-minute comment?
Sure. This is Lamar Frederick, 3254 Deer Creek Drive. I'm back again. A year ago in June, I chastised the prior board substantially for making adjustments in the last month of the budget year because there were insufficient appropriation of funds during the year. And you came up at the end of the year and said, oh my goodness, look what we have to do. Now tonight you just gave a pay raise, but you at least discussed it and you thought about it at length. But remember, we've got people out here who are laid off. We have unemployment at a state high. We have people who are losing homes. We have COVID-19 issues. And here we go talking about giving people and rewarding people when there are folks out there who are making decisions between paying the rent and putting food on the table. Secondly, I heard the supervisor say this twice or 3 times. All kinds of money laying around here. Well, there isn't. You have taken in this fiscal year several $100,000 out of the rainy day fund to balance the budget. The state fiscal agency says for the 2021 fiscal year for the state, your revenue sharing will be an increase over last year of about $25,000. So, folks, you need to sit down, as you have tried to do, but you never did, because Mr. Steiner said, well, we're going to put it on the agenda on a quarterly basis at the minimum to go over the budget, see who's over budget, under budget, and if we have any problems that we have to adjust it. You haven't done that yet, so I think you should really start thinking about that. Now you're going to do budget preparation starting next month. So maybe before you do that, you ought to say exactly where you are today with the current budget. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Have a good night. Next caller, go ahead with your name and address and give your 2-minute comment. Go ahead with your name and address and state your comment.
Hi, this is Gene Stock, 8322 Twin Creek Circle. On January 3rd, I sent all of you a email message with some recommendations, but just in case you didn't get it, I wanted to read it to save time. And I said I would like to make the following recommendations in an effort to better communicate with the residents of Bedford Township. Bedford Township residents are currently notified concerning notices of public hearings by a posting in the local newspaper as required by law. Bedford Township currently uses the Monroe News for those notices. Since many Bedford Township residents do not get a daily newspaper anymore, and many people don't get the Monroe paper in particular, I would suggest that Bedford Township consider posting notices of public hearings in the following ways. Post all notices to the Bedford Township website. Post all notices to a Bedford Township Facebook page. Post all notices to the local newspaper, the Bedford Press. This paper is mailed out to every home in Bedford Township every other week. I know people have made comments on Facebook and directly to me that what is the township hiding? Why don't they let more people know? And I try to reassure them that that's not the case, but this may solve that. Also, currently, Bedford Township publishes on the township website the current meeting agendas along with the supporting documents for the township meetings. This is very useful for Bedford Township residents, especially those who are following along watching the meetings. The township does post the agendas on the Planning Commission and the Zoning Board meetings, but they do not include the supporting documents for the meetings. I would like to recommend that in all future meetings for the township, you also begin including the supporting documents for these meetings on the township website. And this is another thing that when people try to follow along with those meetings, zoning and planning, they have no idea what people are talking about. We don't have those documents.
Your time is expired.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great night. I was muted, board members. Didn't realize. Go ahead with your name and address and give us your comment.
Hi, this is Gail Kane, 1056 West Temperance. Just a couple notes here. We had a really good meeting tonight, and there's definitely proof of no collaborative except for the fact that the supervisor has, again, refused to appoint a board member for the planning department. I would like to see that maybe we suggest doing a yearly rebid for the contracts for the HV and the electrical. Maybe that would help take care of this, because I'm not trusting of that standing either. We should probably get a road committee. There should be no one person who is overseeing decisions in the road matters. We used to have one. It needs to come back. And we need public disclosure of any other committee that any township member sits on. I would like to see a change in the procedural policy for the committee selection. there needs to be some method of madness that is applied to that. What we've done as of late was crazy, and I do believe that there had been a deadline set for the applications. That's why Mr. Montre made the comment when 25 people come flying in here, all wanting to be on a committee after the fact. Rick, do you recall back when you sat on the Board of Trustees along with Mr. Peroni, the history in assessing? It's very, very interesting. I recall it. I recall the Rainius group being ran out on the basis that the board would not give them more money to do the job that they wanted to do, which ended up resulting in forcing an employee into a position he was not prepared to take. So this is partly what has happened, but it seems to be that implied threats work. And I find that odd because the compensation committee doesn't give raises, and yet you talk about her getting 2%.
Ms. Keen.
Yeah.
I appreciate your comments. Have a great night.
Oh,
Okay,
thank you
George,
so
do we have
much,
any
sir.
callers? I'm just trying to be fair to everybody. I don't mean to be rude to any callers, so. Any more callers? Okay, all right. On to board comments. Mr. Montre?
Nothing from me.
Okay, Mr. Bruning?
No, nothing. Good meeting tonight. Everyone was cordial.
Mr. Gore? You're muted. Got you 3 times tonight now.
Idiot.
We're gonna have to put a muted jar in there, put a quarter in every time or something. But no, it was a good meeting tonight. I appreciate all the comments, all the conversation, listen to everybody. I'd also like to pass on my condolences to the Toledo Police Department and to the family of Mr. Stalker. Rest in peace, my brother. Will take the watch from here. So have a good night, everyone.
Mr. Steiner?
Yeah, I too wanted to reiterate what Mr. Gore said. Our thoughts and prayers to the Stalker family. Very difficult time for any family to have to go through that. Toward the very end, I'm going to ask Mr. Goldsmith if he could just give us a 30-second update on Prairie Woods. As for budgets, after our audit's complete, I'm going to get back into that process. Mr. Frederick just mentioned what I had in my notes. I had a nice long conversation with our finance manager the other day, Mr. Miller, and we do need to get back to the point of reviewing that budget, which never really took off. We need to make that happen. We need to look at our budget, and any time that we are over the correct percentage, such as the one I kept mentioning this evening, through December 31st of 2020, which should be 6 months into the year, and people shouldn't be more than 50% of budget. I do understand some things get paid out once a year, so it could show over budget and it'll carry them throughout the rest of the year. So those can be monitored as exceptions. So throughout each month, we should know where we're at based on that budget. Mr. Miller has done a fine job so far. I've heard nothing but good from all different ones in the departments about what he's doing, the information he's providing to them. He's provided me with some spreadsheets, as I mentioned, started a couple years ago, talk about pivot tables and slicers. He sent those to me, and he even went further than I did on a few of them. It makes it look very easy, and it's easy to get through those spreadsheets. So we need to talk about that at our budget time. And again, I know Mr. Miller is ready. He can't wait to get into the budget and help us. He's helped us fix a lot so far. Last but not least, tomorrow is a day that there's still a lot of disagreement in this country. No matter whether you have a conservative or a liberal political affiliation, we must have peace across this nation tomorrow. Capital of each state and our United States capital in Washington, D.C. Everyone has a right to a voice, but when you use that voice and do illegal acts, it destroys. We have disagreements, but it must be cordial and do things legally. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Ms. Janzak?
I would too like to send my thoughts and prayers out to the Stalker family. That was a horrible, horrible thing that happened last night. The other thing I have is, unfortunately, this year, the lady from RSVP who usually helps our seniors with tax forms, their Michigan 1040 CR, the homestead property tax credit claim, she is not going to do that this year. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, she has opted out of doing that. We talked to Monroe County Opportunity Program, MCOP. They said, to contact them, and they would be able to possibly find somebody with senior legal or somebody to help them with those forms if need be. That's all I have.
Ms. Hirschberger? You're muted.
A note with Mr. Miller, I don't know if anyone saw it, but he sent out a revenue and expenditure spreadsheet to everyone with some links that'll open up and show you everything that has been spent under that category. He's hoping that it'll help everyone everyone looks at budgets a little bit differently and spending a little bit differently. So he's trying different things to see if we like one thing over another, to help us understand what is being spent and to be able to see that easier than going through a million different sheets. So hopefully everyone will have a chance to look at that and give some input on whether they like that or not. And then as requested by the board, we did purchase the other temperature. It's a walkthrough, so it'll be put by the front door and people will just walk through and it'll give an alarm. And the other one we'll just take upstairs and put it by their department since they wanted one and it took so long to get the first one. And that's all I have.
Mr. Steiner, do you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, just real quick, what Trudy just mentioned about Mr. Miller sending that spreadsheet to everyone. During my conversation the other day, I asked him to work on a way whether we had to either do it by projector or if we still are having Teams meetings that we can actually display those spreadsheets right up on screen. And that, I think that'd be excellent. And everybody could be on the same page at all times. That's all.
Okay. Okay. What a sad deal with Officer Brandon Stalker, and I'll reiterate what everybody said. It's they're in our prayers for sure. To the community, the vaccines are being handled by the Monroe County Health Department. They've been inundated with calls. Keep calling, get an appointment. We're getting a lot of calls at Township Hall. We have nothing to do with the vaccine, and I'm thankful for that. Next meeting, I'm going to be bringing an agenda item for an ordinance amendment with music on patios for business owners. As right now our ordinance reads, you cannot even have a radio playing on your patio. Most businesses and restaurants, well, I'm mainly speaking for restaurants, they're all building patios right now. They're all moving to get people outside if they can. And it's pretty boring when you're sitting there and you have no background music. I'm not talking having rock bands or major speakers that are going to go out through the neighborhood, but just some background music, something a little, when people are sitting out there, they can listen to some music. So I'll be bringing that for a little ordinance amendment. I have a meeting with the sheriff tomorrow that I'm looking forward to with all the supervisors. They are doing some amazing things, a lot of changes, and I'm really excited. We've been talking with the DDA. The DDA wants to see more security in the downtown development area. Discussed with them last week about adding an officer to the DDA, strictly to monitor businesses and speeds. And Troy was basically like, let's hold off on that until you see my new plan. You might not need that. So I'm excited for the direction they're going. We are continuing to work on the police memorial out front in front of the sheriff's department. I don't know, Mr. Gore, if you're interested in helping me a little bit on that. I've got some ideas, but I'm looking to move on that this spring. And two, with the Lewis Avenue Redevelopment Committee, Joe, if you need any help or any guidance with anything, please don't hesitate to call. We have a lot of knowledge, Al and myself. And Ms. Keene's right. I don't attend every meeting. Pryor has sat in for most of those. I'm inundated with meetings. I can't make all meetings, but I always have a representative on my behalf. So I appreciate this meeting tonight. Disappointed in a few decisions, but you know, it is what it is. We'll keep moving forward and we'll keep working on behalf of the residents of this community. And I appreciate everybody, and I hope y'all have a safe, great week. If no further questions, we stand adjourned.
See you later, everybody. Everybody have a good night.